With the Boston Celtics currently being the 2 seed in the East pretty much locked in, and with them having the potential to go back-to-back this year, everything seems like sunshines and rainbows for the Boston Celtics. But what if I told you it's not? What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another video. And before we get into all the juicy stuff, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe. It helps me so much. If you guys mess with me, doing those simple actions help me so much. And now let's get into the video. So obviously, if you guys have been watching the NBA, you guys probably think the Celtics might be the favorites for the NBA title this coming season as the playoffs are approaching. Even though they're the 2nd seed in the East, in my humble opinion, I have them over the Cavs to make it out of the East. And they are very capable of beating a lot of the teams that are currently in the West, as their roster, and I don't know how to put this, but their roster is just stacked. But what if I told you guys that the Boston Celtics roster is not going to be stacked for much longer? If you look at the Boston Celtics salary situation, we have 5 guys who have potential to be making around $30 million next season. And then we have another 2 guys who are going to be making around $10 million on top of those 5 guys. So that's 7 guys making about $8 million or more. That's insane to me. And, you know, the NBA is not going to let that happen, as my AI friend helped me find out that the Boston Celtics are projected to be above the NBA's second apron threshold next year, which will impose significant restrictions on their roster building and trading capabilities, including limitations on trades and draft situation, draft capital, stuff like that. So I'm gonna go into depth with this in a second, but just thinking about this, I believe the NBA did this to create more harmony in the league. So it is very likely that this is the last year that we see all 5 of these guys playing on the same team, because, you know, they're gonna pass the second apron. Let's go into a little deep dive of what that basically means when they're above the second apron. So when it comes to trades, it basically says no aggregating contracts. So teams over the second apron cannot combine multiple players' salaries to acquire a bigger contract. So they couldn't like combine Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser to get like a Devin Booker. Obviously it wouldn't happen, but they can't do that when they're above the second apron. And another thing is limited trade flexibility, as when they make a trade, they can only take back the same amount of money they're trading away, or they have to take less then. So they can't like trade a single player for a guy who's making more money than that. They just have no flexibility there. Another thing is they cannot receive cash. They cannot throw in cash in a trade. So, you know how you see some players being traded away for just salary? You can't do that with, when you're above the second apron. Another thing is there's no trade exceptions. So they cannot use trade exceptions from previous years or those created by combining salaries. So, you know how you see in some trades, it says they use a trade exception to complete this trade. You can't do that if you're above the second apron. And the last thing is frozen draft picks. So teams above the second apron at the end of the regular season will have their first round draft pick 7 years out frozen, meaning they cannot trade their draft pick from 7 years out. So basically, they're limited on how many draft picks they can trade away in a deal. And then when it comes to free agency, they cannot use a mid-level exception, basically meaning if the Boston Celtics were to keep this roster together, they would not be able to sign anybody over the minimum salary. So they have to pay people only minimums, and that's not going to attract many good players because most players want more than the minimum contract. So that could hurt the Celtics' depth going forward. And there are also some draft pick penalties. I'll let you guys pause the video and read this. I'm not going to go over all this because it's a lot, and I feel like it might confuse some of you guys. So if you're a real NBA nerd, you guys should pause it and then basically like try to comprehend it yourself maybe. But the point is that there is going to be some draft pick penalties as well if your team is over the second apron. And that's basically going to be the Boston Celtics next year if they don't move someone. Okay, so now that we got the second apron problem out of the way, what is going to happen with the Celtics moving forward? Who are they going to trade? And that's when a tweet from NBA Central comes in, as Jake L. Fisher basically reported how people around the league believe that the Celtics will eventually have to trade someone with Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday as names to watch. And then the full quote reads, "They're going to have to trade some guys at some point." One team capologist, I don't know how to say that, told the Stein line, "The 2 major salaries that league figures are monitoring and possible future trades are Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday." And that would make sense. They're both making over $30 million next year, and they're both under the salary cap for at least 1 more year. Kristaps for 1 more year after this season, and Drew Holiday for like 3 more years after this season. So one of those 2 guys are going to be traded. So we kind of narrowed it down to 2 guys, because, I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are pretty much untouchable. You're not going to trade those guys. And Al Horford is set to be a free agent this coming off season, so you can't really trade him unless you sign him back for the minimum. Then you wouldn't really want to trade him because you have him for the minimum. So it's down between, you know, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, and Drew Holiday. And I feel like the Boston Celtics Celtics value Derek White more than these other two guys because he's always available, and he's kind of just like the old Mr. Reliable for their team. He's kind of changed their culture too. Like, he's been there the longest out of these guys. Like, he was there for their first championship run against the Warriors. They obviously lost, but he was there, and then now he's kind of just been there the whole time. So I feel like, the Celtics would rather keep him than the other two guys. So that narrows it down to Kristaps and Drew Holiday, like the tweet said. And let's go over both trade scenarios for each player. So we have Drew Holiday. He's going to be under contract for another 3 years on top of this season. So he is 34 years old. Obviously, his production is dropping. And do you really want to keep him if he's going to be 37, making $30 million? Like, the Celtics could try to trade him off. But at the same time, other teams might not want him if he's going to be making that much money going into his late 30s. So you got to think about both sides of that aspect. And then we have Kristaps Porzingis. So he's 29 years old, and he has 1 year after this season left on his contract. I feel like he would be way easier to trade, and I feel like you might get more back for him than Drew Holiday. I know that you're going to get more back for him than Drew Holiday. So when the Celtics do that, they're not going to be able to get another star player. They're probably going to have to get role players because, like we said, if they're over the second apron, they can't trade for more money than they already have. So it's going to have to be multiple players who combine to the same contract Kristaps Porzingis will be making next season. So if you ask me, I feel like Kristaps Porzingis is most likely to be traded out of those two, and I feel like the Celtics will get more back for Kristaps, some guys who are cheaper than he is, but I'm not really sure. So let me know, guys, down below in the comments if you guys think him or Drew Holiday is going to be traded out of the two, because I feel like one of them two are going to be traded because, the Celtics do not want to be over the second apron like that. They don't want to deal with those punishments, and I mean, at the end of the day, this is just all speculation and rumors. So maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe they keep both of them. Maybe they just bite the bullet and stay under the second, or stay above the second apron. Who really knows what the Celtics front office is going to do? Who knows what Brad Stevens wants to do? I'm not him. You're not him. So we're just going to have to wait and see until next year, free agency. So let me know down below what you guys think. Are one of these guys going to be traded, or do the Celtics keep these guys and just say, we're just going to go through the second apron? I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. I like reading all the comments. I like hearing your opinions. Even if it's hate, I like reading them. It expands my ball knowledge. So make sure you guys do that. Make sure you guys like the video too. Subscribe, do all that stuff like I said earlier. It helps me so much. And yeah, man, we're out.